The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal moon. Its silver walls caught the light from 3 distant suns as it slowly turned around the planet below. Inside the station, thousands of beings from across the galaxy worked together in what they called the Galactic Council. Jake Morrison walked down the long hallway toward the main meeting room. His black suit was perfectly clean, and his tie was straight. Behind him walked 3 other humans. Dr. Lisa Parker carried a datapad and smiled at the alien workers they passed. Colonel Sam Hughes wore his dress uniform with all his medals shining. Maria Santos held a briefcase full of cultural exchange papers. The 4 humans had been living on this station for 3 years now. Every day they attended meetings with aliens from 12 different worlds. Every day they smiled and nodded and said please and thank you. Every day they made deals that were not very good for humanity. The other species in the council thought humans were wonderful. They were so polite. They never argued or raised their voices. When the bird-like Zephyrians took over a human mining station, the humans just apologized for any trouble and moved their workers somewhere else. When the crystal beings called the Hegemony claimed 3 human planets, the humans said thank you for letting them know and quietly evacuated their people. Jake pushed open the doors to the council chamber. The room was huge with a ceiling that went up so high it disappeared in shadows. 12 different shaped chairs sat around a circular table. Each chair was made for a different type of alien body. The human chairs were small and simple compared to the others. Vexstar, the Prime Minister of the Zephyrians, was already in his chair. His feathers were bright blue today, and his sharp beak clicked as he talked to the other council members. The Zephyrians looked like giant eagles that had learned to walk on 2 legs and wear clothes. They controlled more space than any other species in the council. Next to Vexstar sat the representative from the crystalline hegemony. Its body was made of living crystal that changed colors when it spoke. The crystals made beautiful music, but their words were often cold and harsh. They owned the richest mining worlds in known space. The Void Dwellers had the strangest representative. It looked like a shadow wearing a spacesuit. Nobody knew what they really looked like under their suits. They came from the empty spaces between stars and built their cities in the dark. Other species were afraid of them, but tried not to show it. Jake took his seat and placed his hands flat on the table. Lisa sat to his right and opened her datapad. Sam sat straight, with his hands behind his back like a soldier. Maria smiled at everyone and sorted through her papers. "Ah, our human friends have arrived," said Vexstar. His voice sounded like wind through trees. Always so punctual. Always so well prepared. The other council members made sounds that meant they agreed. The slug-like gastropods gurgled happily. The insect hive queens clicked their mandibles in approval. The plant-based sylvans rustled their leaves. Jake smiled his diplomatic smile. It was the same smile he had worn for 3 years. "Thank you, Prime Minister Vexstar. We are honored to be here." "Such polite creatures," said the crystalline representative. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "So different from the warlike species we usually encounter. It is refreshing to work with beings who understand their place in the galaxy." The other aliens laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it was not kind either. They laughed the way adults laugh at children who say something cute. Jake kept smiling, but his fingers pressed a little harder against the table. Lisa looked at Jake from the corner of her eye. She had seen that finger movement before. It meant Jake was starting to get angry, but he was hiding it very well. She made a small mark on her datapad. The mark looked like she was taking notes about the meeting, but it was really a signal to Sam. Sam saw the mark and touched a small device on his belt. The device looked like a normal communications unit that all diplomats carried, but it was actually recording everything that happened. In the room, Sam had been recording all the council meetings for 3 years, But the aliens did not know this. Maria opened her briefcase and took out some papers. The aliens thought the papers were about cultural exchange programs and trade agreements. They were right, but they were also wrong. Hidden in the trade agreement language were detailed maps of every alien military base and shipping route that humans had discovered. "Today, we need to discuss the new exploration zones," said Vextar. He spread his wings slightly, which meant he was pleased about something. "My scouts have found some very interesting systems near human space." The Void Dweller leaned forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like it came from far away. The systems contain valuable resources, gas giants with rare elements, asteroid fields with pure metals, 3 habitable worlds. Jake nodded politely. "That sounds like a wonderful discovery. Congratulations on your success." The crystalline representative's body flashed bright yellow, which meant it was excited. The systems would make excellent mining colonies, very profitable for the Council. "Of course," said Jake. "We are always happy when the Council finds new opportunities." Vextar's beak clicked in. What humans had learned was laughter. Such generous spirits. Most species would be concerned about new developments so close to their territory. But humans always think of the greater good first. Lisa made another mark on her datapad. This time, it was not a signal. This time, she was counting. She had been counting insults disguised as compliments for 3 years. The count was now at 4,732. Sam shifted slightly in his chair. To the aliens, it looked like he was just getting comfortable. But Lisa and Maria knew he was checking his weapon. All human diplomats were allowed to carry small defensive weapons. The aliens thought they were for protection against criminals or accidents. They did not know that Sam's weapon could punch through battle armor. Maria sorted through her papers again. She found the one she was looking for and placed it on top of the pile. The paper had information about human colony populations and defense capabilities. The information was 3 years out of date, but the aliens did not know that either. "The new systems are quite close to your space," said the Void Dweller. "Perhaps too close for comfort." Jake tilted his head like he was thinking about this. "We trust the Council's judgment completely. If you believe the systems should be developed, then that is what should happen." The aliens made their happy sounds again. Vextar spread his wings wider. "This is why humans are such valued members of our Council. Always reasonable, always cooperative." The crystalline representative flashed green, which meant agreement. Many species would demand compensation or territory in exchange for allowing development so close to their borders. But humans understand that the Council's needs come first. Jake's smile never changed, but his left hand closed into a fist. Under the table. Lisa saw this and made a new kind of mark on her datapad. This mark meant that Jake was not just angry anymore. He was getting ready for something. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The aliens talked about their plans for the new systems. They discussed which species would get the best mining rights. They argued about shipping routes and defense contracts. Through it all, the humans sat quietly and smiled and agreed with everything. When the meeting finally ended, the aliens filed out of the chamber, talking excitedly about their new discovery. Jake and his team stayed in their seats until they were alone. Jake looked at his 3 companions. His diplomatic smile was gone. "Lisa, how many human colonies are in those systems they found?" Lisa checked her real datapad, not the one she showed the aliens. 5 colonies. 2,300,000 people. Established settlements with families, schools, and industries. "Sam, what are our real defensive capabilities in that region?" Sam's soldier mask slipped away. 17 battle cruisers, 43 destroyers, and 6 orbital defense platforms. Plus the hidden facilities they don't know about. "Maria, How long until they expect us to evacuate our people? Maria looked through her real papers. Based on their standard procedures, they will give us 6 months to clear out completely. Jake stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were human families who had no idea their worlds had just been given away by aliens who thought humans were too polite to fight back. 3 years, Jake said quietly. 3 years of smiling and nodding and saying thank you, while they treated us like children. Lisa closed her datapad. The recording devices are all in place. We have documentation of everything. Sam checked his communication device. The signal boosters are ready. We can reach Earth instantly. When you give the word. Maria locked her briefcase. The real files are prepared for transmission. They will learn exactly what kind of species they have been dealing with. Jake turned back to his team. For the first time in 3 years, he was not smiling. Send the message to Earth. Tell them it is time. Outside the window, the stars looked the same as always. But everything was about to change. The galaxy was about to learn that human politeness was not weakness. It was a choice. And that choice was about to end. 3 days later, emergency lights flashed throughout the space station. The council had called an urgent meeting. Jake Morrison and his team hurried through the corridors as alien voices spoke over the communication system in dozens of different languages. The council chamber was full when they arrived. All 12 species were present, and many had brought extra representatives. The air felt thick with tension and excitement. Jake noticed that the Void Dwellers had brought 3 of their shadow-suited figures instead of their usual one. Vexstar stood at the center of the room with his wings spread wide. His blue feathers were darker than usual, which meant he was very pleased about something. Fellow council members, we have extraordinary news. Our Deep Space Scouts have completed their survey of the systems we discussed 3 days ago. The crystalline representative's body flashed bright gold. The preliminary reports were conservative. The actual resources are beyond our most optimistic projections. Jake took a seat with his usual polite smile. Lisa opened her datapad and prepared to take notes. Sam sat at attention like always. Maria arranged her papers neatly on the table. To everyone watching, they looked exactly the same as they had for 3 years. But under the table, Jake's hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. Lisa's finger rested on a hidden button on her datapad. Sam's weapon was unlocked and ready. Maria had already sent a coded message to Earth before entering the chamber. The Void Dweller's suit made a hissing sound as it spoke. The 5 systems contain resources worth more than the combined wealth of 6 council worlds. The gas giants have helium-3 concentrations we have never seen. The asteroid fields contain pure platinum and rare earth elements. The 3 habitable worlds have perfect conditions for agriculture and manufacturing. A species Jake had rarely seen before spoke up. The thermal worms lived on volcanic worlds and looked like giant glowing snakes. Their representative spoke through a heat-proof translator box. These systems could fund council expansion for the next century. We could build new stations, new fleets, new colonies across unexplored space. The slug-like gastropods gurgled. In agreement, the insect hive queens clicked their approval. The plant-based sylvans rustled with excitement. Every species in the room was already planning how to spend their share of the wealth. Jake raised his hand politely. Excuse me, but I believe there may be some confusion. Those systems are not unclaimed territory. They contain established human colonies. The room went quiet for a moment. Then Vexstar SB clicked in what humans had learned was amusement. Of course, we are aware of the human settlements. That is why we are discussing this as a council matter, rather than simply claiming the systems for ourselves. The crystalline representative flashed blue, which meant it was being patient with someone slow to understand. The human colonies. are small and inefficient. A few mining stations, some agricultural settlements, a handful of research facilities. They are not making proper use of such valuable resources. Jake kept his voice calm and polite. Those colonies house over 2 million human citizens. They have been established for decades. Some of the families have lived there for generations. The Void Dweller made a sound like static. The Council recognizes that relocation will cause some inconvenience. That is why we are prepared to offer compensation. Lisa looked up from her datapad. What kind of compensation? Vexstar spread a holographic display over the table. It showed 5 star systems in the outer rim of the galaxy. These systems have been surveyed and found suitable for human habitation. They are not as resource-rich as your current colonies, but they will provide adequate living space. Sam leaned forward slightly. Those systems are over 200 light years from any major trade routes. They have no strategic value and limited agricultural potential. The crystalline representative flashed yellow with impatience. They are perfectly adequate for a species of your size and needs. You should be grateful that the Council is offering any compensation at all. Maria sorted through her papers and found a legal document. Under Council law, established colonies cannot be forcibly relocated without a unanimous vote and clear evidence of wrongdoing or mismanagement. The plant-based sylvan rustled its leaves in what sounded like laughter. The law also states that Council needs supersede individual species claims when resources are critical for galactic stability and prosperity. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. Are you saying the Council intends to vote on taking our colonies? Vexstar folded his wings, which meant the discussion was over. The vote has already been scheduled. It will take place in 1 hour. Given the strategic importance of these resources, I am confident it will pass easily. The aliens began filing out of the chamber to prepare for the formal vote. Jake and his team remained seated as the room emptied. When they were alone, Jake's polite mask finally slipped. Lisa, send the activation codes to Earth immediately. Lisa's finger pressed the hidden button on her datapad. Across the galaxy, receivers on hundreds of human worlds received a simple message. Protocol 7 is now active. Sam, contact Admiral Peterson. Tell him Operation Closed Fist begins now. Sam spoke quietly into his communication device. His words were in a code the aliens had never learned to break. Within minutes, human battle fleets that had been hiding in the outer darkness began moving toward their targets. Maria, prepare the real files for transmission. Full disclosure. Maria opened her briefcase and took out a different set of papers. These contained the true extent of human space, population, technology, and military capabilities. Information the Council had never seen because they had never bothered to ask the right questions. 1 hour later, the Council reconvened for the formal vote. The chamber was full of excited alien voices discussing how they would divide the wealth from the human systems. Jake and his team entered quietly and took their seats. Vexstar called for order. We are here to vote on Council Resolution 2847, the strategic acquisition of systems designated Human Colonial Group 7 through 11. These systems will be developed for the benefit of all Council species, with current human residents relocated to more appropriate territory. The Void Dwellers' suit hissed. The Void Dwellers vote in favor. The crystalline representative flashed green. The hegemony votes in favor. One by one, the major species cast their votes. The Zephyrians voted in favor. The thermal worms voted in favor. The gastropods gurgled their approval. The hive queens clicked in agreement. The sylvans rustled their consent. When it came time for the smaller species to vote, a few hesitated. The aquatic cetaceans had always been uncomfortable with forced relocations. The crystalline geometrics preferred legal precision to expedient solutions. But they were outnumbered and overpowered. Jake stood when his turn came. The human delegation votes against this resolution. Vexstar's beak clicked with amusement. Of course you do. But your single vote cannot stop the will of the council. The final tally was 9 votes in favor, 3 against. The resolution passed easily. The alien representatives congratulated each other on their successful acquisition. They began discussing timelines for evacuation and resource extraction. Jake remained standing. Prime Minister Vexstar, I request permission to address the council. Vexstar gestured graciously with one wing. Of course. We understand this news is difficult for your people. Please, share any concerns you may have about the relocation process. Jake looked around the room at the 12 species who had just voted to steal human worlds. His diplomatic smile was completely gone. When he spoke, his voice was calm but somehow different. The aliens noticed the change, but did not understand what it meant. I thank the Council for this educational experience. You have taught humanity a valuable lesson about galactic politics. The crystalline representative flashed curious orange. What lesson is that? Jake's eyes were cold as winter space. That politeness is wasted on those who mistake it for weakness. He turned to Lisa. Send the files, all of them. He turned to Sam. Signal the fleet, full engagement. He turned to Maria. Transmit our withdrawal from the council. Effective immediately. The aliens looked confused. Humans were always polite and cooperative. They always accepted council decisions with grace. They never made demands or threats. Jake faced the council one final time. You have 1 hour to reconsider your vote. After that, you will learn what happens when humanity stops saying please and thank you. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as Jake and his team walked toward the exit. Behind them, the aliens demanded explanations. They wanted to know what the humans meant. They insisted that council law was binding on all member species. Jake paused at the doorway and looked back. We are no longer a member species. And you are about to discover that there is a very big difference between choosing to be peaceful and being incapable of war. The doors closed behind the human delegation with a sound like thunder. In the chamber, 12 alien species suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. But they would not understand just how terrible until the hour was up and the real humanity finally revealed itself to the galaxy. The hour passed like a held breath. In the council chamber, the alien representatives waited nervously. Some tried to continue their normal business, but their voices were quieter than usual. Others stared at the empty human chairs and wondered what the strange ultimatum had meant. Vexstar paced back and forth on his perch, his blue feathers ruffled with uncertainty. The crystalline representative's body flickered between colors as it tried to process what had happened. Even the void dwellers seemed restless in their dark suits. When the chamber doors opened again, Jake Morrison walked in alone. He was not smiling. Behind him came Lisa, Sam, and Maria, but they looked different too. Their diplomatic politeness was gone, replaced by something cold and professional. Jake did not take his seat. Instead, he stood at the center of the room where everyone could see him clearly. The hour is up. Have you reconsidered your vote? Vexstar spread his wings in annoyance. Human Morrison, your theatrics are becoming tiresome. The council has made its decision according to established law. Your colonies will be evacuated within 6 months. This matter is closed. Jake nodded slowly. Then we have nothing more to discuss as council members. Lisa, begin the presentation. Lisa activated a holographic projector that she had never used before. The aliens assumed it was standard diplomatic equipment, but as images filled the air above the table, they realized they had been very wrong about many things. The first image showed a star map of human space. But it was not the small cluster of systems the Council thought humans controlled. The map showed hundreds of worlds connected by glowing lines that pulsed with energy. "This is actual human territory," Lisa said in a voice that was calm and scientific. "Not the limited border zone we allowed you to observe, but our real space. 437 worlds connected by quantum tunnel networks that allow instant communication and travel." The gastropod representative gurgled in confusion. "That is impossible. Our scouts have surveyed human space extensively. We know the boundaries of your territory." Lisa smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Holographic projectors hiding our real colonies. Fake energy signatures masking our actual ships. We have been managing your intelligence gathering for 3 years." The next image showed human technology that made several aliens step back from the table. Ships the size of moons with weapons that glowed like captured stars. Space stations that could survive inside solar coronas. Manufacturing facilities that could build an entire fleet in days. Sam stood and gestured to the display. "These are our actual military capabilities. Not the patrol ships and defense platforms we showed your inspectors, but our real war machine. We have been building it while you thought we were weak and harmless." The Zephyrian military advisor spoke up, his voice tight with shock. "The energy requirements for such technology would be impossible for a species of your size and industrial capacity." Maria opened her briefcase and took out a crystal data storage device. "This contains complete records of every conversation, every meeting, every negotiation we have had with Council species for the past 3 years. You will find that we never actually lied to you about anything." She inserted the crystal into the holographic projector. Audio recordings filled the chamber, playing back conversations where Council representatives had asked about human capabilities. In every case, the humans had answered truthfully but incompletely. "When you asked about our defensive ships, we told you about our patrol vessels. We never mentioned our battle fleets because you never asked about them specifically. When you inquired about our population, we gave you the numbers for our frontier colonies. We never mentioned our core worlds because you assumed the frontier was all we had." The Void Dweller's suit made angry static sounds. "This is deception by omission. You deliberately misled the Council about your true strength." Jake's voice was cold as space. "We answered every question you asked with complete honesty. If you made incorrect assumptions based on incomplete data, that is not our responsibility. You never bothered to conduct a thorough survey because you were convinced we were too primitive to be worth the effort." The display changed again, showing detailed schematics of every Council species' military technology. Ship designs, weapon specifications, defensive capabilities, strategic weaknesses. The aliens stared in growing horror as they realized humans knew everything about their forces. "For 3 years, your ships, your stations, your planets have been under constant observation," Sam explained. "Every time you upgraded your defenses, we cataloged the improvements. Every time you developed new weapons, we found countermeasures. You thought you were dealing with children, so you never bothered to hide your capabilities from us." The crystalline representative's body flashed angry red. "This level of espionage is an act of war against the entire Council." Lisa laughed, and the sound made several aliens flinch. "War? You have not seen war yet. This was simply intelligence gathering. We wanted to understand our neighbors." The display showed psychological profiles next. Detailed analysis of each species' leadership, decision-making patterns, cultural weaknesses, and social structures. The profiles were so accurate that several representatives recognized their own personal habits and private thoughts described in the data. "We have been studying you as carefully as we studied your technology," Maria said. "We know how each species thinks, what motivates your leaders, how your societies function. We know your fears, your ambitions, your breaking points. Vexstar. Voice was shaking now. How could you have gathered so much information without our knowledge? Jake gestured to his three companions. You thought we were just diplomats. Lisa is actually our chief intelligence analyst. Sam is a strategic warfare specialist. Maria is an expert in psychological operations. We have been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history, and you helped us every step of the way. The display changed one final time, showing something that made the chamber fall completely silent. It was a live view from space around the council station. Surrounding the station were dozens of human ships that had not been there an hour ago. They were sleek and dark and covered with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Admiral, Peterson sends his regards, Sam said quietly. The human fleet has been watching this station for the past hour. If we had not returned safely from our meeting, they had orders to act accordingly. The aliens looked at the ships surrounding their home and realized they were completely helpless. The human vessels were close enough to destroy the station. In seconds, but they had approached so quietly that no alarm had been raised. This is impossible, whispered the thermal worm representative. Our sensors would have detected any approaching fleet. Jake's smile was sharp as a blade. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. We have been inside your detection grid for 3 years, learning how it works, finding its blind spots. Those ships have been in position since before this meeting began. The council chamber was filled with terrified alien voices demanding explanations, making threats, pleading for mercy. But Jake raised his hand, and somehow his simple gesture commanded silence. We withdraw from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We no longer recognize council authority over human space or human citizens. Any attempt to enforce your recent vote will be considered an act of war against humanity. The Void Dweller's suit hissed with anger. You cannot simply withdraw from the council. There are laws, procedures, consequences. Jake turned his cold gaze on the shadow-suited figure. We are withdrawing because we choose to withdraw. We joined because we chose to join. You seem to have forgotten that membership in the council is supposed to be voluntary. Vexstar spread his wings desperately. Be reasonable, Morrison. Think about what you are doing. The council maintains peace across hundreds of worlds. Without our structure, there will be chaos. Jake walked toward the exit, followed by his team. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at the terrified aliens who had thought they ruled the galaxy. There will be no chaos. There will be a new order. One where humanity is no longer interested in being polite to those who mistake our courtesy for weakness. The doors closed behind the humans, leaving 12 alien species alone with the knowledge that they had just made enemies of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Outside the windows, human warships waited in the darkness. Like patient wolves, the age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The council chamber was chaos after the humans left. Alien voices filled the air with panic, anger, and confusion. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to negotiate. A few sat in stunned silence, trying to understand how badly they had misjudged humanity. Vexstar stood on his perch with his wings spread wide, trying to restore order. Silence. We must respond to this threat with unity and strength. The humans may have superior technology, but they are still vastly outnumbered. The crystalline representative's body flashed violent red. They have been spying on us for years. They know our every weakness. This is exactly the kind of treachery we should have expected from a predator species. The Void Dweller's suit crackled with static. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. Numbers will overcome their technological advantage. We should strike immediately, before they can prepare their defenses. But the aquatic cetacean representative spoke in a voice like deep ocean currents. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why they revealed their capabilities now. They could have destroyed us at any time during the past 3 years. Why did they wait? The plant-based Sylvan rustled nervously. They wanted something from us. Information, perhaps. Or they were studying us for some larger purpose. In the depths of space around the council station, Admiral Peterson stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the alien fleet movements through quantum sensors. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too many battles. His uniform was simple and practical, without the decorative elements the aliens seemed to love. Admiral, the Zephyrian battle fleet is moving into attack formation, reported Captain Linda Hayes from the tactical station. 47 ships approaching from Sector 7. Peterson nodded without taking his eyes off the holographic display. Let them come. Maintain defensive positions around the station. Do not fire unless fired upon. On the communications station, Lieutenant Kevin Ross looked up from his console. Sir, we are receiving surrender demands from 12 different alien species. They want us to withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Peterson almost smiled. Send a standard diplomatic response. Tell them we are not threatening anyone. We are simply ensuring the safety of our diplomatic team. The first shots came from the Zephyrian fleet. Bright energy beams lanced through space toward the human ships. The beams should have been powerful enough to crack the hull of any known vessel. Instead, they struck the human shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by energy barriers that barely flickered. Captain Hayes checked her readings twice before reporting. No damage to any ships, Admiral. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defensive screens. Peterson opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet commander. Zephyrian vessels, you have fired upon human ships without provocation. Cease your attack immediately. The reply came in the screeching voice of a Zephyrian war leader. Human scum, you will surrender or be destroyed. The might of the Zephyrian Empire will crush your pathetic fleet. Peterson sighed. Very well. All ships return fire. Disable only. Repeat, disable only. We want prisoners, not corpses. The human response was surgical and terrifying. Beams of coherent energy reached across space and struck the Zephyrian ships with impossible precision. They did not punch through hulls or explode fuel tanks. Instead, they targeted specific systems with accuracy that seemed impossible. Engine cores shut down cleanly without exploding. Weapon systems powered down safely. Life support continued working, but propulsion and offensive capabilities simply stopped functioning. In less than 3 minutes, 47 Zephyrian warships were floating helplessly in space. Back in the council chamber, emergency reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The crystalline hegemony's home fleet had been disabled while trying to protect their mining worlds. The Void Dweller battle groups had been neutralized while still in their hidden bases. Every major military force in council space had been rendered harmless without a single death. The slug-like gastropod representative gurgled in terror. How is this possible? They have defeated fleets across dozens of star systems simultaneously. No species has that kind of reach. Jake Morrison's voice came through the chamber speakers, calm and educational. The quantum tunnel network I mentioned earlier allows for instantaneous communication and coordination across any distance. Our fleet commanders have been working together in real time. The aliens looked around the chamber in confusion. Jake was not in the room, but his voice was perfectly clear. They realized that humans were somehow speaking to them from their ships. You are wondering how we can speak to you without using your communication systems, Jake continued. We installed quantum transmitters throughout this station 3 years ago. We have been monitoring every conversation, every meeting, every private discussion you have had. Lisa Parker's voice joined the transmission. We know about the secret agreements between the Zephyrians and crystalline hegemony. We know about the Void Dweller plans to expand into neutral space. We know about every alliance, every betrayal, every hidden agenda in the Council. The aliens began to understand just how completely they had been outmaneuvered. For 3 years, they had been playing politics while humanity gathered intelligence and planned for this moment. Sam Hughes spoke next, his military training clear in his precise words. Your fleets have been disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are alive and unharmed. This was a demonstration, not a massacre. We wanted you to understand the difference between our capabilities and our intentions. The thermal worm representative spoke through its translator box with a voice like melting metal. What do you want from us? What are your demands? Maria Santos answered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who understood how civilizations rise and fall. We want you to understand what you have been dealing with. For 3 years, you treated humanity like children who needed guidance from their betters. You made decisions about our people without consulting us. You took our worlds without considering our rights. Jake's voice returned, and now it carried an edge that made several aliens step backward. You ask what kind of species humanity really is. We are the kind that remembers every insult, every slight, every moment of condescension. We are the kind that plans for years before taking action. We are the kind that prefers to win without fighting, but we are very good at fighting when necessary. The Void Dweller's suit sparked with desperate energy. This is impossible. Predator species are supposed to be impulsive and aggressive. They are not supposed to be capable of long-term planning. Lisa's laugh echoed through the chamber. You made assumptions based on limited data. Yes, humans are predators. But we are not like the mindless beasts you studied on primitive worlds. We are thinking predators. We are social predators. We are patient predators. Sam's voice added a chilling detail. Every human colony you thought was small and defenseless has hidden military installations. Every trade ship we sent through your space was actually gathering intelligence. Every cultural exchange was an opportunity to study your weaknesses. The aquatic cetacean representative spoke in a voice like deep currents. You have been preparing for war since the moment you joined the Council. Jake corrected him gently. We have been preparing for the moment when diplomacy would no longer serve our interests. We hoped that moment would never come. We wanted to build genuine partnerships with our galactic neighbors. His voice grew colder, but you made it clear that you saw us as subjects, not partners. You voted to steal our worlds as casually as you might order lunch. You laughed at our politeness and mistook our restraint for weakness. The chamber fell silent as the aliens absorbed the full scope of their miscalculation. They had treated humanity like a minor species to be managed and controlled. Instead, they had been dealing with the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Maria's voice brought a final revelation that left the Council speechless. The most important thing you need to understand is this. Everything we have shown you today represents our restraint, not our full capabilities. The disabled fleets, the intelligence networks, the technological demonstrations. These are what we do when we are still trying to be civilized. Jake's voice carried a promise that chilled every alien in the chamber. You have not yet seen what we do when we stop trying to be civilized. And if you are wise, you never will. The transmission ended, leaving 12 alien species alone with the knowledge that they had awakened something they were completely unprepared to face. Outside the windows, human ships waited in the darkness like sleeping dragons. The galaxy would never be the same. 7 hours passed in tense silence. The Council station hung in space, surrounded by human warships like a metal egg protected by steel wolves. Inside the chamber, 12 alien species sat without speaking, each lost in their own thoughts about how badly they had miscalculated. The chamber doors opened and Jake Morrison walked in alone. He moved differently now, without the careful diplomatic steps he had used for 3 years. His walk was confident, purposeful, like a predator who no longer needed to hide among prey. He took his position at the center of the room but did not sit down. Instead, he looked around the table at each alien representative, his eyes cold and measuring. When he spoke, his voice carried the quiet authority of someone who held all the power in the room. 7 hours ago, your fleets attacked human vessels without provocation. In response, we disabled every major military force in Council space. Your ships are intact, your crews are alive, but your ability to threaten anyone has been temporarily removed. Vextar's feathers were dull gray now, the color of fear and defeat. What do you want from us, Morrison? State your terms. Jake smiled, but it was not the diplomatic smile the aliens remembered. This smile belonged to a predator who had cornered his prey. I want you to understand what has really happened here. For 3 years, you believed you were the dominant powers in this region of space. You made decisions for other species. You took what you wanted. You treated smaller civilizations like children who needed your guidance. He gestured toward the window where human ships waited in the darkness. Today you learned that you were never in control. You were being managed by a species you thought was harmless. Every major decision you made was influenced by information we provided. Every military move you planned was known to us before you made it. The crystalline representative's body flickered between colors as it struggled to process this revelation. You are saying you have been controlling the Council for 3 years? Jake shook his head. We were not controlling you. We were studying you. We wanted to understand how galactic politics worked before we decided how to participate. You taught us that power in this galaxy belongs to those willing to take it by force. The Void Dweller's suit crackled with desperate energy. What happens now? Do you intend to conquer the Council worlds? Will you impose human rule on our species? Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Conquest requires effort and resources that could be better used elsewhere. We have no desire to rule over other species. We simply want to be left alone to pursue our own interests. The aquatic cetacean representative spoke in a voice like distant waves. Then what are your demands? What must we do to end this crisis? Jake turned back to face the council table. You will rescind the vote to claim human colonies. You will recognize human sovereignty over all systems we currently occupy. You will establish new protocols for dealing with species who withdraw from council membership. The slug-like gastropod gurgled nervously. What protocols do you mean? Jake's expression grew serious. Any species that chooses to leave the council will be allowed to do so without interference. There will be no economic sanctions, no military pressure, no attempts to force them back into membership. The Council will learn to respect the choices of independent civilizations. Vextar spread his wings in confusion. But without centralized authority, there will be chaos. Smaller species need protection from aggressive neighbors. Trade routes need regulation. Disputes need mediation. Jake nodded thoughtfully. You are correct that these services are valuable. That is why humanity will be providing them. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The aliens had not expected this answer. They had assumed humans would either conquer them or simply disappear from galactic politics. Jake raised his hand for silence. We will establish protection agreements with any species that request them. We will patrol trade routes and ensure safe passage for all vessels. We will mediate disputes between civilizations that agree to accept our arbitration. The plant-based Sylvan rustled with confusion. You want to replace the Council with human authority? Jake shook his head again. We want to replace the Council with something better. a system based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced. Compliance. Species will choose their own level of participation. Those who want protection will receive it. Those who prefer independence will be left alone. The thermal worm representative spoke through its translator box. What about species that refuse your authority? What about those who challenge human decisions? Jake's smile became sharp as a blade. They will learn the same lesson you learned today. Humanity prefers cooperation, but we are very good at other options when cooperation fails. Maria Santos entered the chamber carrying a briefcase full of new documents. She moved with the same confident stride as Jake, no longer pretending to be a simple cultural attach. She placed the documents on the table in front of each alien representative. "These are the new agreements," she said in a voice that brooked no argument. "Each species can choose to sign a mutual cooperation treaty with humanity, or they can choose to remain completely independent. There is no middle ground." Lisa Parker and Sam Hughes entered together, both carrying data pads that displayed the current positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Lisa spoke first, her scientific precision making her words even more frightening. Species that sign cooperation agreements will receive access to human technology, protection from aggressive neighbors, and favorable trade arrangements. They will also agree to certain behavioral standards regarding the treatment of smaller civilizations. Sam added the military implications in his crisp soldier's voice. Species that choose independence will be left alone as long as they do not threaten human interests or our allies. Any aggressive actions will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. The aliens studied the documents with growing amazement. The terms were not the harsh conquest demands they had expected. Instead, they offered genuine partnership for those willing to accept human leadership, or complete freedom for those who preferred isolation. The cetacean representative was the first to speak. "These terms are remarkably generous for a species that holds absolute military superiority." Jake returned to the center of the room. "Generosity has nothing to do with it. We learned from watching the council that ruling through fear creates resentment and rebellion. We prefer to rule through competence and mutual benefit." Over the next hour, each species made their choice. The smaller civilizations that had always felt oppressed by the Council Triumvirate signed cooperation agreements immediately. The aquatic cetaceans and plant-based sylvans chose partnership over independence. The major powers hesitated longer. The Zephyrians, crystalline hegemony, and void dwellers had been the dominant forces in the galaxy for centuries. Accepting human leadership meant abandoning their traditional positions of power. But their fleets were disabled. Their intelligence networks had been compromised, and their military technology was centuries behind human capabilities. One by one, they signed the cooperation agreements, choosing pragmatic survival over prideful destruction. When the last signature was complete, Jake looked around the table at the 12 species who had learned the hardest lesson in galactic politics. The Council is dissolved. In its place, we established the Galactic Cooperation Network. Membership is voluntary. Leadership is earned through competence and service. He walked toward the exit, followed by his team. At the doorway, he paused and looked back one final time. "For 3 years, you taught us that politeness is weakness and cooperation is submission. Today you learned that you were wrong about both. Politeness is a choice, and when that choice is revoked, the consequences can be severe." The doors closed behind the humans, leaving 12 alien species to contemplate their new reality. Outside the windows, human ships began moving to their new patrol routes, establishing the protective network that would keep peace across hundreds of worlds. The age of council dominance was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And across the galaxy, smaller species who had lived in fear of their powerful neighbors began to hope that the future might be better than the past. Humanity had switched off their politeness and revealed their true nature. They were predators, but they were predators with a conscience. They were conquerors, but they were conquerors who preferred willing allies to terrified subjects. The galaxy would never underestimate politeness again.